Hey guys, we're back at it with Matt, who just finished first place with Marincess of all decks. How are you liking the deck for this format?
This deck's like really fun, honestly. It's like, I mean, it reminds me of like back in the day when I played Striker and stuff, because like it's more of a hand trap deck, and I'm really into hand trap decks because I really like interacting with your opponent. And yeah, it's kind of just a pile of just a lot of hand traps and a lot of one-card starters, which I thought was pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, let's get right to the list.
To start, 3 Blue Tang is like the best card in the deck. On summon, it's Foolish Barrels. You usually send Seahorse, but I mean, it's like this card is like what makes probably the deck the best as possible, because when you link with it, it activates the top 3 and you can add a Marincess card. So sometimes when you're really lucky, you can just add whatever missing piece you have off of it. For more starters, basically it's 2 Pask, 3 Seahorse, and 3 Sprint Girl. I think this is pretty standard. You played only 2 Pask because like Pask is like Marauding Captain. It summons from hand, and you do like the Toad lines with this. Seahorse is also the 1-card starter because it can special summon itself to the Link Arrow, and Spring Girl is like the best extender in the deck. I don't play Sleepy Maiden, which is like what everyone else is playing, because I think just that card is just like pretty garbage to open in your hand. Like it's a level 5, it can't start your combo, and honestly like most hands don't need it because you'd rather just see a hand trap in the place of Sleeping Maiden. So speaking of hand traps, the best part of the deck, you're playing 2 Droll, 2 Veiler, 3 Nib, and 3 Ash Blossom. It used to be 3 Veiler and the Sleepy Maiden, but I recently got into the School of Droll, and it's kind of broken against like a bunch of these like off meta decks that I search a million times, and honestly like sometimes you punish the cash player when you use this stuff. But I mean, in my personal opinion, like if this was not a locals, I probably would not play Droll in the main deck. I would rather side it, but it's kind of more up to you. So like hand traps kind of depend on the format, of course, and I think these are just the best hand traps to play. Of course, I'll have 3 Imperm later as well, so in total that's about 2, 4, 7, 10, 13 hand traps, which is usually the count that I always play. Nib is a card that I've been talking a lot about in this format, where it's like, I personally think the card is not that great to play in meta decks, but in these off meta decks to like win, you really need these powerful hand traps like Nib to sometimes push through a board. Next, the spells. So I'll start with the Marincess spells. It's 2 Dive and 1 Battle Ocean, also pretty standard. Dive is your one of the best extenders in the deck because it can either summon from deck if you have Battle Ocean, or it can summon from graveyard. Usually you use these cards to, you search the other if you open any of them, and that lets you go full combo as well. But most of the time if you don't have Dive, you search Battle Ocean, so you can go into your Link 4 and make it like 4,300 attack, or yeah. Next, for the other spells, I'm playing 3 Signet Mining, the worst consistency card in the game, because this gets ashed like it's nothing. Honestly, the reason to actually play this deck is this combination of 2 Desires and Called by the Grave, because I think Pot of Greed is pretty good in most decks. In this deck, specifically though, you want to go through your full combo first if possible, and then activate Desires, because you don't want to banish your wave off Desires. You only Desires if you like don't open anything. And then finally 3 Book of Eclipse. This is like kind of the only way to beat the cash board in this deck through the main deck, because like if they go like the full 5 lock and you don't draw enough hand traps, or specifically Nib, you kind of need this to push through their board. Also, just like having this, like I love playing cards that are good going first and second, and this is the type of card that's so blown against so many decks going first or second, especially because this is a Link deck, so Link decks obviously aren't affected by Book of Eclipse, so just having this set as like an additional interruption on your opponent's turn is crazy in this deck. Finally, the traps, which are also the best part of this deck. Basically 3 Imperm and Imperm Plus. This is probably the most like the reason I actually play this deck. It turns your monsters into towers. You search it with Coral Triangle, and overall, like, you don't want to play more. Like, I saw some reasons to list that were playing more, and the reason why was like, while you're breaking boards, if you link climb, you can just activate an Imperm from hand, which like kind of helps you with breaking boards. But it's like every time I'd go second, I'd rather just see a hand trap or Book of Eclipse or something, you know, rather than that to like go second. So you really only just play the one to search in your combo. And the God card goes in match. Yeah, it's pretty funny when you lock the Cashier deck under wins when they special Unicorn. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say about this other than the fact that it has synergy with Stealth Kragan as well, because Stealth Kragan makes everything water. So you could, if you get Kragan on the field and you flip up Gozen, you can just FTK every non-water deck. And that is basically what this format is. Onto the extra deck. 2 Slug, 2 Sea Angel. The starters of the deck. These Link ones are like kind of how what like puts the deck together. Slug is usually the monster you go into first to add back Seahorse from your graveyard when you dump it off like Blue Tang, or you use Seahorse as your normal summon, and then you go into Sea Angel to search Ocean or Dive. Next, I play as the utility cards, Area and Splash Mage. So the reason why you play Splash Mage in this deck is because it's a second copy of Coral Anemone, which I'll get into later, but it also lets you 1 card into the Link 4 in your like really bad hands. Well, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad hand. It'd be like 1 normal summon plus like 4 hand traps. And then you can go into the Link 4 at least and have 4 hand traps. And then you need this if you get Contact Seed, if you get nibbed, you know. Yeah, to like continue playing at all. Like I really just like, if I could not play this card, I would not, but you have to. And this is the card that I really want to play at 2, but just in the context of space, I really can't. It's Coral Anemone. It's like the best Link 2 probably in all of water decks. It special summons a water back to its arrow, and after you link off with it, you can add back a Marincess with it. So it's the Link 2 you mostly make on your first turn. Next, 1 Coral, 1 Marbled. These are the Link 3s of the deck. You mostly make Coral going first to search the trap. Basically, because you go into Coral Anemone, you link off the Coral Anemone plus a monster to make Coral, and then Anemone will add you back a monster to discard off Coral to search for the trap. So you basically you go just net positive. Marbled Rock is important in this format specifically because you are playing like stuff like Gozen and stuff. You want to lock your opponent out of playing because this has like a battle effect, so it removes the ability for them to like crash into anything and remove like their monsters. It also has like a recursion effect, so you usually summon this on like turn 3 or 4 to recur your cards. But overall the deck has amazing recursion, that's why I had to play this deck, right? Finally, both the Link 4s, Aqua Argonaut and Bubble Reef. I mostly make Aqua Argonaut against Kashtira. I talked about this before, is like if you know they're on Golem for whatever reason, you can't really make this because if you negate something and summon something, you're in Golem range. So usually you make this one instead because this one gets really big. Because every time a card gets banned, she gains 600 attack, which is pretty crazy into the Kashtira deck, especially when you're making your monsters unaffected. So they're only out basically as a Kaiju, which you know kind of sucks because you know your Gozen match doesn't save you from Gamma Seal because this is a water deck. The final Link 4 is Zealantis. This is actually the most broken card in the deck. This card has interactions with the deck because it water locks you. So what you'll do to break a board is you'll summon Zealantis. It'll banish the entire field, but it'll only summon back water monsters. So as long as your opponent's monsters aren't water monsters, it won't summon them back because you're water locked by the way of the wording. And then what you do is you summon it back with your other links and you co-link them so you can go to battle phase and start popping stuff. So it's the best going second card in this deck. Like it's the reason why this deck can even go second in the first place without hand traps if you don't open them. Finally, 1 Stealth Kragan and the Toad package. Before I wasn't playing this package just because I didn't want to play into Golem, but now everyone's on Kaiju, so you kind of need to push, like, make some kind of board whatsoever. Like, your board doesn't want to be just either a Nib token or a Gamma Seal, so sometimes these, you know, are good. I got Super Poly today, so that was fun. Kragan, this card is also really crucial, specifically when you nib your opponent, because this deck has trouble outing like a really big nib token. It mainly is just this is the only way to out it. But what makes it so good is that it burns your opponent for the current attack. So if the nib is like 10,000 attack, you'll burn your opponent for like 5,000 attack, and then like this plus any other monster just gain. So it has 2 applications. Mainly is like Gozen locking people, and the other is like removing nib tokens. Finally, the side deck. 3 of my end board, Gamma Seal most of the games. You kind of need it for when they go Arise Heart Pass. Like, Arise Heart Pass is already enough to beat this deck because this is a normal summon deck, and, you know, Macrocosmos beats this deck. 3 Dark Blue to play against Sprite. Sprite's a deck that recently became popular again after it started topping and stuff. This deck, like, to push through a Sprite board, you really kind of need Dark Blue to beat, like, the Melfi board specifically, and the, a Testudo Lock board. The only back row hit I'm playing, which is wrong because this deck sucks against trap decks. Common issue in all my deck profiles is I don't sign enough back row, but I played Eldritch today, but I drew it every game, so it was pretty good. But yeah, you kind of need it to be back row. And finally, the other great cards in this deck.
Oh, yeah.
So, when I go first, I just never lose because even if they hand trap you like a million times, if you get into any of these cards, you usually just turn skip them with your hand traps as well. And then, so the main thing what makes this deck really good is that, say you get hand trapped on your first plays and you can't keep on extending, well, Blue Slug adds back your monster, so next turn you have follow-up to start your play again because they're all one-card starters. And then, so the idea is, like, your hand traps plus all your floodgates, they buy you a turn, and then you just kill your opponent the next turn with the one-card starters. So, I'm playing specifically 2 anti-spell, and this combination to beat the branded deck, because the cases where you don't draw Ash, it's kind of hard to break to beat them. Like, Branded Fusion does so much in that deck, so you kind of need these cards to destroy them, and then this is the best card in the game. I hope it doesn't go back to 3. If it does go back to 3, I'll definitely play 3. Like, this card has, every time I've opened this card, I've just instantly won. It's not even close. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you as always for the deck profile. Any last shout-outs?
As usual, shout out to my team, Team X9, all the boys who helped me put the deck together, mainly Adam. And shout out to the locals. Go for game, best locals in Toronto. Free locals on Monday. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.